All right, guys, this is Margie March here. I'm going to step out of your chat room so that you can have your conversation. So I'll see you all later.
Okay, so I have Nana Kwasi Gyan Apenteng. I have Audrey Obuobisa-Darko. We are waiting for Kofi Akpabli to join us, and then again full time. But Nana, we're talking about COVID before Audrey joined us. So how has the past 3 months been for you? Work, life, experience?
Well, well, just as the lockdown began, I decided to write a lockdown diary.
Okay.
And I wrote about 19 of them, but they were all published in the graphic. Unfortunately, because of the COVID, not many people got to see the newspapers at the time. Since then, I've been writing a weekly column known as COVID Diary. So it's gone from lockdown diary to COVID diary. And their friends are urging me to publish it. So what I'm planning to do is to look at it and do some contexting around the issues and maybe publish it
That'll be
sometime.
great. That'll be great.
Yeah,
Because for people like you, this is not like your first major lockdown or the first time you've had your movement on your and restrictions imposed. So I'm sure that in your writings you give us some historical context, some of the previous.
Immediately after every coup, we have a. So in fact, one of the first diaries I wrote, I sort of compared the lockdown to the curfew, especially the curfew after the 81 coup, the Rawlings coup.
Yeah.
And the same way people used to go out and say they were going to look at curfew. Can you imagine? People went out of their houses and just stood there in the window looking at curfew. And curfew meant nothingness. Nothing happened. But people wanted to see nothing happening. And so on the eve of the lockdown, I wondered whether people would come out, stand outside their houses to look at lockdown. And I'm sure maybe a few did. And it will be interesting to know how they saw the lockdown. But the difference is, I think we are now a less disciplined society, or maybe more rebellious. I don't know how to describe it. Because in 20, 30, 40 years ago, if they said everybody go and sleep, everybody went and slept. Today,
maybe
people
it was
don't
also
take
because
it
of the kind of enforcement that they had back then. Because I am not that old, but I think I encountered, I experienced 1 or 2 curfews, and back then you'd have soldiers on the streets. So
yeah,
you
but
go
we brought
out
soldiers this time.
anyway. But it wasn't. Back then, after the curfews, the soldiers were really empowered and they could abuse people and do whatever they wanted to do. But
That is
these
true.
times, even though some military or some security officials abuse people, they were minded that we live in a time of rule of law. So we didn't see a lot of excesses like it used to happen back then.
Yeah,
I think
but
that's what gave people.
Kojo, you know an interesting thing? I once wrote about this in a column about 40 years ago, that the interesting thing is that when they announced the curfew and you went to the remotest village with not a police station within 60 miles, still people obeyed and slept.
Yeah.
So I think you are right. Now, people have the notion that we are in a democracy. I've got my rights, the social media, the cameras everywhere. And so it is both good and bad. But I think that in times of emergencies and crises, when our lives depend on all of us stepping in the same direction, then discipline is an asset. And you can hardly see, imagine that the state of Ghana up to this time has not been able to enforce the law requiring motorcycle riders to wear a helmet.
That's a shame. It's been years.
I mean, yeah, and to stop at red. We haven't been able to, and this is not done in secret. This is not something people are violating on their own. It is seen every day on our streets. And so there's no state authority that can enforce, so that for people's own lives, is the duty of the state. The first duty of the state is to protect us based on our first principle of human rights. And even that, the right to life, we cannot enforce.
Now, we'll pick up this conversation another time, but let me introduce the other authors, and then we'll begin this session of the festival. Now, for those of you watching us online, I'd like to acknowledge the kind sponsorship of Wear Ghana. As you can see, all the authors are in Wear Ghana gigis. You also need to get your gigi, and as much as possible, get your Nkunim mask as well, because we are in the COVID era. So you need to step out protected. You protect yourself, you protect other people. So get your gigis and get your Nkunim marks as well. Now, Nana Kwasi Gyan Apenteng, he's just a big man. If I have to introduce him, I'll say so much about him. So let's just say he's just a big man. But currently he's the chairman. You're still the chairman of the Media Commission, right, Nana?
No. That's I finished my term, getting to a couple of years now.
Okay.
So I'm former everything.
Former, also, but a current big man, right?
Yeah. As you can see, I actually need a size 3 of this nice thing I'm wearing. I need a triple X.
Okay, Audrey is also here. Audrey Obuobisa-Darko is also one of our authors. Audrey, say hello to our viewers on Facebook and YouTube.
Hello, good evening.
And we'll be joined by Kofi Akpabli and Alba Supreme. They'll all be reading to us this afternoon. Now, my name is Kojo, Akoto Boateng. I am coming to you from a car. Audrey is coming to you from a home. Nana Kwasi Gyan Apenteng is also coming to you from his home. And wherever you are watching us, we want you to share this link on Facebook so that others can also join the Festival of 9. I nearly said 9 lessons, Festival of 9 authors and and readings. So Nana, I saw a post of you and Obuobisa, September 2, 2014 at 4:50 p.m. Ni Adukwe Moffat posted on Facebook. Audrey Obuobisa-Darko, a junior high school 3 student of the University of Ghana Basic School, presenting a copy of her book Wahala Day to Mr. Kwasi Gyan Apenteng, the president of the Ghana Association of Writers, at Powerhouse. The book will be launched on September 28, 2014 at Powerhouse at 4 p.m. So Audrey, 6 years ago, was in junior high school 3, and she wrote her book and presented it to you. Do you remember that moment? Both of you, do you remember that moment, Audrey?
I do. Audrey was probably the youngest writer whose book was launched at Powerhouse, and she's an inspiration. After she launched the book, we organized something like a question and answer session for her. And at that time, Audrey, how old were you?
Audrey, your mic is off. Please turn on your mic.
14. It's on.
You were 14 then. And
Yes,
she sounded like somebody who was in her 20s, So I shudder to think when Audrey finishes university, she's going to take us by storm. Audrey is a good writer. Wahala Day is a good book, very interesting and enjoyable.
Since we are in a time of Wahala, yes, since we are in a time of Wahala, I think we should start with Wahala Day, because people are going through a lot of Wahala. The world is going through Wahala. So Audrey, this is not me saying ladies first, but this is me saying contest first.
It's what?
And your book, it's the title has the right context for the moment we are living in right now. But before you go, Kofi Akpabli has also joined us. Kofi, say hello to all our viewers and welcome to the stream.
Hi, everyone. It's a delight to be doing this in these times. I have a strong feeling that we are making history. Carry on, Kojo.
Kofi, have you had fufu today?
Not yet. It's for dinner.
Oh, so you still get to have fufu in COVID times. Then life must be good for you, Kofi.
Surely. It can't get any better than this.
Okay, so Audrey, please turn on your mic and let's start the session. Over to you, Audrey.
Okay. Thank you. So actually, I wasn't planning on reading from Wahala Day. Yes, I was actually planning on reading one of his recent works.
Okay, you are at liberty to read and share what God has given to you with the rest of us. So go ahead.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, Audrey, we are waiting.
Oh, sorry, I'm having a few issues.
You are okay. We can see you, we can hear you.
Can you see me?
We can see you, we can hear you. So go ahead.
Okay, can you see me?
We can see you. We can see you. Yeah.
A few issues on my...
Okay. We are gonna, whilst you fix your technical issues, let me say that Alba has joined us.
So yes, the short story I'll be reading is titled Araba. It's an Afro-futuristic story. Okay.
Go ahead.
The title is Araba. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Audrey, we can hear you. Go ahead. Can you see me? I'm waving at you. Go ahead. Okay, Kofi, whilst we get Audrey sorted, let me introduce Alba briefly, and then we'll come to you for your reading. Then we move to Nana.
Oh.
Then we'll get back to Audrey, so that Audrey will have enough time to sort out her technical stuff. Alba, good. I don't know where you are, so I don't want to say good afternoon or good evening, but how are you? Welcome to the readings. We can see you. Your video is perfect. Your audio is not. So, Alba,
can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. How are you?
Okay, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. How's the period been for you? Global pandemic, restrictions, everything. How's it been for you?
Well, by nature, I'm a homebody, so the lockdown was perfect for me. It wasn't a problem for me, so I was good.
Great.
I think it should have been a little longer, but yeah.
Great. So we are going to start the readings. Kofi will start, and then I'll come to. We've lost Audrey, so I'll come to you, Nana, and then we'll come to Alba. When Audrey joins us, she'll also do her reading. So Kofi, over to you. Kofi, switch on your mic. Your mic is on mute, so switch it on and proceed. Good.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. This is one of its kind. Alba, I can see you. Kojo, this is the first time we are meeting after Heritage Caravan.
Yes.
You miss it?
I missed it. I miss traveling around Ghana and all the beautiful people and the great stories.
I know. Nana Mituchema. Thank you. Audrey, your mic is fine. We could hear you, Audrey. We could see you as well. So you are okay. Great. So my first reading, this is the Corona reading. My first reading is to evoke nostalgia because what Corona has done for us has allowed us to see small things that we've taken for granted. For instance, selecting one or two good friends and then just going out to have fun in a crowd. That's something I guess we've all not had in a long while. So I'm going to tantalize you with my first reading so you can see what we have missed out there. It's titled Dinner on the Street at Midnight. Dinner on the Street at Midnight. And I read. It was supposed to be hot banku and fish, but I chickened out. Like a lame duck, I only went for the shitolu, charcoal grilled salmon, spiced in all its glory, with a side dish of raw ground pepper, fresh tomatoes, and onions, and more rains of onions. For the records, Banku still got some street justice. As table after table, I saw patrons showing the dish where power lies. A few were energetically doing unto Kenke what ought to be done unto Kenke. I watched them as they serially cut out huge muscles with all 5 fingers, perform the customary rounding up into swallowable balls, executing the deft touches with a fresh pepper sauce before dropping it in the mouth. While the mouth promptly gets down to munching business, the fingers return to grab juice dripping smoked fish, dissect it, and like happened to the kinky, touch it a couple of times to the hot sauce and ferry it into the mouth, which by now was wet and waiting. The time was past midnight. Sitting by my side were Nana Ama Tofet of KNUST, Pajon of Bentifi Turtles fame, Kwame Edu, his assistant, and author publisher Nana Aredamwa, who is in town from Lagos. We and other revelers are congregated around a long lay of tables and benches on the street, which has been closed to traffic. Balloons and colorful Christmas niceties are festooned all above us. But if one thing really changed the festive atmosphere, it was the bright lights. They turned the night into noonday. Oh, then the music. I was reminded of a wine festival in Frankfurt or Burgundy. But this is all here in good old Accra, the Osu night market to be precise. It was an African party, and so the energy was more. Everybody was dancing what Osibisa refers to as the body music. I can bet that no one in this community is in bed. They are all out having fun, the fun of the season. And as such, a motley parade it was. There were the well-dressed, scantily dressed, and shabbily dressed. None would be left out. It was a community that has exploded to express joy as song after song boomed from the speakers. The Accra Loves High Life event during the holidays was a cultural occasion designed to pay homage to Osu. It was also organized to celebrate our local foods and high life music, which evolved in the then Gold Coast. The Osu market itself, which is over 150 years, and the trading activity of the people are the backdrop to the festival. I chanced upon the event after going through another function in the capital. The good lessons for tourism and event planning were all there for all to see. Yes, it was a street party, but a party that energized and contributed to the local economy. The vendors, mostly women, were in their shops and stores at the markets, preparing and selling their wares. Serving as waiters and assistants, polite and dancing ladies carried orders to the customers. I saw scores of high-profile patrons from various backgrounds, including international, who were participating in the event. They were buying food, snacks, or drinks. Then there was a stage at one end of the seating arrangement. One musical act after another went there to electrify the crowd. However, just focusing on the stage was like watching a live football match on TV at the stadium. The real action was on the ground. While seated, we were actually surrounded by performances all around us. The spontaneity was magical. Just stand here, and the man walking by just stops to respond to an irresistible rhythm. The next moment, someone across your own table has the spirit, descend on her, and wow, the moves. At another end, a group of young men get up and together let their body testify to the power of the music. Ooh, and hear the song mean differently than you experience on radio or elsewhere. When it was a song sung in Ghana, the atmosphere exploded. Was it Wise's Ekikimi? The response was just like the song said, electricity. The entire community joined the chorus, singing out the lyrics, gesticulating and expressing the meaning. Kam Gasmila's Telemo, and a group placed a pepper-filled earthenware pot on the head of a dancing young man. The Shatawale's Kai, Kakai just dropped. The reaction was like a roar at a stadium crowd when a team scores a much-needed goal. Everyone, salesmen, market women, ladies, gentlemen, were all at it. I saw little bright-eyed kids at 1 a.m. singing and dancing, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I looked at the time, 1:40 a.m. To sit still was to sin. To join in the dance moves was to lose the bigger picture. I settled for a stroll from table to table, getting occasional body kicks from dancing bodies. There was no escape. At about 2 a.m., with my mouth burning with hot pepper and savoring the sumptuousness of smoked salmon, I achieved my epiphany. I realized my first lesson for the year on the streets of Osu. Real happiness is communal. When the music stops and the morning comes, the public toilet near the market will be there. The kenke stores will be there. The side shops will be there. The narrow streets will be there. However, sorry. Okay. I'm missing something. But okay. However, that joy that exploded would have to be lived to be believed. End of story. Thank you.
Thank you, Kofi. Great one there. And I'm actually giving you a song from the Osu Selected Union. This song was released in the 1940s. Because when you were reading, I could see and feel and taste and I saw myself in there. The kenke, the music, ekikime, telemo. People well dressed, others shabbily dressed, others, and I believe there was no social distancing. You didn't need a mask to go out there, and those were the days we could meet communally and have fun. That's a great write-up, Kofi. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I call it the good old days.
Yeah.
Because we do not seem to have come to terms with it fully. But our world has changed. The world we know.
Our world has indeed changed.
Yeah, the world we know has changed. Right before our eyes.
Yeah.
And that event was the Accra Loves High Life event, right?
Yes, it was. Yes, it
Wonderful,
was.
Kofi. Wonderful. We'll move on to the next reading, and I'll go to Nana Kwasi Gyan Apenteng before I come to Alba and Audrey. Those of you watching us at home, you may do yourself a favor by grabbing a glass of sobolo, some palm wine if you do have some, or something Ghanaian to drink whilst you enjoy the readings by these exceptional Ghanaians. So our next reading is by Nana Kwasi Gyan Apenteng. If you just tuned in, all our authors are wearing gigis from Where Ghana. Find their page, go to their website, get yourself a Where Ghana gigi or an Nkunim mask so that you look good and protected when you step out there. Nana, over to you.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed Kofi's reading as usual, and I wish I was there. So I'm reading from a book I'm working on at the moment, and the working title is What I Choose to Remember, Biographical Notes. So as you can understand, episodes from my life. And I hope that by the end of this year, it will, by God's grace, see the light of day. So this is chapter 1, and is subtitled Mankranso. My formal media career began in March 1982 when I joined the Daily Graphic as a staff writer. However, I had known since I was very young that I wanted to work in newspapers and had taken every opportunity to write for youth and student magazines or done vacation work and internships that offered the opportunity to write. My fascination with news and information work had several beginnings, but the earliest period was inspired by events of my early childhood when news and information were universal currency, as precious as gold. The 1950s and 60s were years of great excitement in the country. And even as a young boy, I felt the enthusiasm and was often swept into its whirlpool. My parents lived in the Ashanti region at the time of the agitation for a federal state, which was spearheaded by the Ashanti-based National Liberation Movement, NLM. The political rivalry between the NLM and the Convention People's Party, CPP, turned to violence in the early 1950s, which spread beyond Ashanti into the areas of its periphery, especially towns in the present-day Brong-Ahafo region, which had been part of Ashanti. Parts of Ashanti and adjoining districts became no-go areas to rival militias and political gangs. I can remember, albeit dimly, at least one instance in which all the passengers in a vehicle my mother and I were traveling on was stopped and interrogated by one of these gangs. The gang would shout one of the two rival slogans, freedom for CPP and Mati or Domo for NLM. Mati was a short version of Matimiho, which literally meant I have split or seceded. And this was the slogan of the Federalist NLM, which wanted to split from the rest of the country. Freedom was for CPP. Rival political gangs mounted roadblocks in the middle of the highway and stopped passenger trucks traveling usually to and from Kumasi. In those days, the country was heavily forested, so there was a lot of leafy covers to hide these gangs from sight. They would mount a blockade, usually using a felled tree, to stop the vehicle and order all passengers down. On the one occasion I recall, all passengers were asked to declare whether they were Mati or Freedom. There was plenty of commotion as passengers were not sure which side to choose, since the gangs had not betrayed their own leanings. On this particular occasion, someone helpfully shouted, Mati, and everyone fell in line, and disaster was averted because, as it turned out, the marauders were indeed NLM men. Around the time of the Ashanti violence, my parents were transferred to a town on the Sunyani Road called Mankranso. It was then no more than a middle-sized village, although from a child's eye view, it was rather large. We lived in perhaps one of the few concrete houses in the community, as most of the houses were made of mud. An interesting episode related to me by my mother when I was older typifies the kind of community it was at the time. My father had been transferred to the town from Kumasi, and I believe later that this was for some kind of punishment for picking up a minor disagreement with his boss. Some weeks after arriving and settling in, the elders of the town called one evening to have a chat with my father. After clearing the room of women and children, principally my mother, me, and my infant brother, at the request of the elders, and following some small manly gossip and chit-chat, the visitors proceeded to interrogate my dad about his wife. In particular, they wanted to know whether she was pregnant. My father was puzzled at the rather curious turn of topic and wanted to know why they wanted to know whether his wife was pregnant. After some apologetic hewing and hawing, the spokesman explained their mission. The town's gods did not tolerate menstruation within its boundaries, and so there was a structure outside the boundary in the bush reserved for women during their monthly periods. This had been explained to my mother by the women, but so far, after 2 months, she had not visited the place. My father nearly fell off his chair. This practice had long died and been buried in the places familiar to my parents. It is true that most villages had earlier practiced such an ostracism policy, which accounts for the phrase "gone to the bush," which is used as a euphemism for menstruation. However, it had been discarded a long time ago in many places, but apparently it was alive and kicking at Mankranso. My father, who had a very good sense of humor, told them he was sure his wife would go to the bush when she needed to, but since she had not gone, it may mean she was not seeing red for whatever reason. On account of this bush business, my mother pretended to have some kind of illness, so the elderly women consulted the traditional doctor on her behalf. The man prepared some concoction for my mother, which she threw away secretly. But on account of her supposed problem and the fact that she was under the care of the doctor, she was excused from going to the bush. The house we lived in actually belonged to the NLM boss of the village. He was an important man, being relatively well off and also politically connected. Many men often gathered in the house and sometimes allowed me just to be in there as some kind of a pet or mascot. One day, however, many men came to the house wearing red clothes with some having smeared red clay in chuma on their faces. Their mood was ugly indeed. My mother pulled me and my younger brother, who was about 1 year old at the time, quickly into our room. My favorite spot in our living room was behind the window curtains, because through a small crack in the curtains, I could see into the courtyard, where many political and traditional activities took place frequently, because in addition to his commercial and political activities, the landlord was also a chief. On that day, it was clear that something terrible had happened. As I said, all the men were wearing red and some had smeared in chuma red clay on their faces. In Akan traditional custom, this was a sign of grave happenings and perhaps a declaration of war. More men arrived, and in no time at all, the whole courtyard was full. Suddenly, a huge cry went up as a man was literally thrown onto the concrete floor. His hands and feet were all bound tightly with a thick rope, the kind usually used to tie goats to trees. All the men in red started shouting at him. Some kicked and punched him as he lay screaming on the floor. my mother discovered me hiding behind the curtain and peeping out to the courtyard just as the action was heating up. I was pushed into the bedroom from where I could only hear muffled sounds. About an hour later, after all the men had gone, the women swept the floor of the courtyard and cleaned it with water, but it was easy to see where the sand outside had soaked the blood. Later, I heard my mother and her friends saying that the man who had been brought in with his hands and feet bound was a CPP organizer in a nearby village who had been caught sleeping with the wife of an NLM executive at Mankranso.
Oh.
This was the proverbial buying we with counterfeit money situation. It was the worst of all possible sins. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. That was a vivid account, more like an action movie. An action movie from Mankranso. Excellent,
Yes.
excellent, excellent, Nana. Excellent. And you see, when you were reading and you mentioned Mankranso, I was wondering if some of our listeners knew where Mankranso is or what the town is. So let me give them a modern account or a modern example for them to
Yes,
relate to. It's not a good example though, but Mankranso is in the Ashanti region.
Hello, everyone. Looks like
Almost Phony had coming in here.
we're getting
Ezekiel Kafui says, hello. Ezekiel says, buying we with counterfeit. It will be nice, Papa. Williams Nanache says, Nana, that was vivid. Esinam Sosu says, that was great. I enjoyed it. And Elsie Dixon is just clapping for you. Elom Klugan is also clapping for you. And Elsie says, smart woman, Nana, your mom, I salute. I'll be reading the rest of your messages. Nana, do you know if when that practice of having women to go into the bush during their menses, when it was outlawed in Mankranso, do you know? Did you live there long enough for you to see changes?
No, you see, what happened was that this practice was widespread up to maybe in the 1940s. But by the time we went to Mankranso, this would be in the early 1950s when I was a very small boy. It was still in those parts, you know. Let me say that maybe the places nearer to Accra, in the eastern region and things, it had died out. Nobody abolished it. But simply as the towns grew and, you know, people adapted to different ways of living, but the more you went into rural areas, they maintained this kind of tradition. So I'm sure definitely by independence 57, I'm sure after 57, by the 1960s, most places had abolished this kind of
Great, Nana. So we've lost Nana, but if you're a filmmaker watching us, you may want to contact Nana and maybe take that piece and produce a film. It will be a great film to watch. History, politics, culture, and a bit of everything. You may want to do that. We'll move on to the next reading, but we have a lot of messages. Kofi, somebody wants to know why you like writing about food like that. Were you born in a kitchen? Kofi, were you born in a kitchen?
Am I supposed to
Your mic
answer?
is,
Oh.
you know, Reggie Rockstone once said, "Your woman na me my mic." Doctor ni who me no say boy we over here bright. And I'm catching doctor and I said that's right.
So food is such an interesting topic. I mean, just look at what we are able to do sub-regionally with this jollof business. Okay, so soup is one topic that always generates passion, debate, laughter, and stuff like that. I think as a people, food also defines us. Okay, and so when I get a chance to write about food, it's not just about a dish and appetite. It's also about what makes a people tick. In any case, because I am a freelance journalist, I think I can also be called a food journalist.
Yeah. Why not?
Oh my God. Kojo, carry on. Ignore what's going on in my background. It's okay. Let's go. Let's go. No. You can... Guys.
Alba.
Hi everyone. It looks like we've lost our moderator.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm just jumping in here. I think we'll probably like to take a reading. Audrey, if you're ready, we'd love to take a reading from you. And by the way, I'm Margie. I was working behind the scenes.
Hi, Marge.
Hi. Okay, Audrey.
Hi, Mary.
Oh, it's Mary Marge. Okay. Anyway.
Hi everyone.
Kojo is back. I'm going to bring him back in here. Yes,
Hello.
hi Audrey, we can hear you.
Yes, so I'll be reading one of my short stories in two parts. I'm going to read the first half right now. The title is Broken Mirrors, Blood Rain, and Death. Okay. The water trickles down my neck slowly, warm and silent. The heat in the shower does the poor job melting away the ice in my toes. It was chilly last night. I have been standing here for 3,000 seconds, this bathroom. I know this because I have been counting, thinking. I'm afraid to move, too afraid to feel, and I'm too afraid to look anywhere, especially in that mirror by the door, above the sink that's now full of shards and water and my blood. I saw her last night. Araba, are you still in there? I can feel my skin break a sweat even under the water pouring on my skin. I open my mouth to respond, but nothing comes out. 3 hard knocks on the door again, and I feel my heartbeat in my leg. I saw her last night. I'm leaving to get groceries, so please take care. That's the voice from behind the door. I nod in reply, although I know she can't see it. My sister, I mean. My sister's footsteps fade away gradually as she leaves, and I hear a bang on the front door. 65 seconds later, everything falls silent again. She's gone. I know this because I have been counting. Something crashes to the floor behind me. I try to scream, but nothing comes out. I look down on my hands and see blood running down my fingers. The drip drip sound on the floor, slow and steady, in sync with the beats of my heart. Hushed voices are dancing about my ears, rough hands brushing my bare skin and tugging at my hair. It's raining blood in my bathroom, on my skin, on the floor, on the walls, from the ceiling. Something is walking out the broken mirror behind the door. It's coming towards me. My voice erupts from within my throat, and I scream with all I am. There are rushed footsteps towards me. I hear them pound against the hard linoleum floor. My head grows light and my knees give away. 100 seconds later, all goes dark. I'm not really sure of this because I'm too weak, and I'm not really counting. Araba. There are rough hands around my neck. A figure is standing before me, an axe in its hand. I shut my eyes and slowly open them again. My sister's bewildered eyes are staring back at me. Her arms are shaking as she grips the axe. What are you doing? Her cheeks go red as she sets the weapon down. I was trying to break the door. I heard you screaming. There are tears in her eyes. I thought you were. Yes, she cuts in. But I came back to get my purse. Silence settles in the room. The room is back to normal. White walls, white tiles. There's nothing on my skin. No blood, not even water. I look back at the sink below the broken mirror. It's intact, still full of shards and water and my blood. Can you see it? My sister is confused. See what, Araba? I blink again and look around once more, and our eyes lock again. It's okay, it's nothing. Ifwa sighs and sits on the edge of the bathtub, rubbing my leg while staring at the floor in deep thought. Is this about our mother? 45 seconds, 46 seconds, 47, 48, 40. Araba, 52 seconds, 53 seconds, 81 seconds, 22, 26. My sister cuts in again. Araba. I slowly turn my head and rest my gaze on her face, which is laden with lines of worry and fear and something else I can't describe. I step out of the bathtub and grab my towel. While wrapping it around my body, my sister speaks up again. The police are coming in today to talk to us about what happened to mom before they start the investigation. I look back at her for a while. 21 seconds. I know because I'm counting. I think she doesn't understand what she's saying. The investigation? I ask her, is this about mom and her death? I put a finger to my lips. She becomes silent immediately. I don't want to hear anything of it. Our mother's death. Ifo and I have been living alone for 30 repetitions of about 80,000 seconds. It's been a month since mom died. My sister said she came home that night and found her still on white fur carpet. Her blood was drawing her blood was drawing thick lines which were the same pattern on our curtains, and there was a knife in her lifeless hand. Okay, this is the end of the first half.
How about I have a song for you? And this is your song. Auntie Arabi, bro. Arabi. that was great. That was lovely. That was vivid. And we are getting a lot of messages for you as well. Let me quickly read some of them. And Kofi is clapping. Um, um, Winter Shira says that I love the emotions in this. Chematin Betty says, good one, Audrey. Kwame Boafo is also watching. And then Audrey, I love your reading skills. Nana Aredamwa says she's been awesome today. And Esinam says you are so adorable. So we are getting a lot of messages for you. Because of time constraints, I'll let us move to Alba for her reading. And then when we come back, we'll take some questions from those watching. We've got just about 30 more minutes for this session. And I don't want us to eat into the time for the next session. So Alba, you will take over. We'll take questions and answers after the first round. And if we have enough time, all of you will give us another round of readings before we go for the next session.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to follow Kofi's lead.
Alba, we can hear you, but this is it. Lift your microphone a bit to your mouth so that you'll be louder and clearer.
Can you? Okay.
Better now.
It's better now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to follow Kofi. Kofi started with the food. One of the things that always caught my attention first when I moved to Ghana was this concept of you're invited when people eat. And so this piece is about a bit of Ghanaian culture. It's entitled You're Invited. One of the first things I noticed when I arrived in the motherland was the generous nature of the natives. When eating, they would always invite people in their vicinity, even strangers, to join them. Like you could walk into your local McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken and be invited to take a bite out of someone's burger or chicken thigh. With careful observation, I noticed that most people, when invited, would smile and not partake of the meal. Interesting. It didn't take long to see through that cultural facade. Most of the time, they don't really mean it, but they say it anyway. It's a bit like a rehearsed play, and everyone knows their part. So you say to someone, "Oh, you are invited," and the person, according to the script, should say with a smile, "Thank you," meaning, "Thank you for inviting me, but no, I'm not going to eat your food." It's all part of the culture, people say, but looking on that scene as a semi-outsider, it smelled a little bit hypocritical. I mean, why invite someone to put their hands in your food when you really don't want to? I mean, if an invited person deviated from the script and took up the offer, I wonder what Ghanaian would do. Now, that would be very interesting to see. I went to lunch with a friend at one of the eateries at Trade Fair. We used to go there every day, and the young woman who always served us is called Albertine. On this particular day, we arrived late and most of the food was finished. My favorite meal has always been ampisia with palava sauce, with tuna fish and a boiled egg. I ordered this every day. We sat down, ordered our drinks, and the ever-smiling Albertina came to take our food orders. Much to my dismay, Albertina informed me that the ampisia and palava sauce was finished. I feigned shock, and Albertina seriously went on to explain in a very loud voice that a man sitting at the table nearby had eaten the last portion of ampisia and palava sauce. "I can't believe it," I cried, making sure the man heard me. He, of course, looked in our direction with slight embarrassment. I said, "How can you do that? You've taken the last of my favorite dish." Now, anywhere else in the world, the reply would have been, "Hey, that's life," or, "What do you want me to do about it?" Thinking I was a foreigner, the man smiled brightly and took the Akpabli route. He grabbed a shovel and proceeded to dig a hole for himself. "You're invited," he said happily. I threw my script in the bin and said thank you. I grinned and handed Albertine a plate for her to collect half of the man's food for me. From that moment, everything moved in slow motion and the place became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Albertina was rooted to the spot and was tossing the plate from hand to hand as if it were a hot brick. Shock written all over her face, trying to mouth something, but the words refused to come. The man had also gone into a state of shock because he obviously didn't expect me to take up his offer. His knife and fork hovered above his food and his mouth gaped open. I'm sure I saw several flies enter and exit. And his look just said, "You cannot be seriously thinking of sharing my food with me." At that moment, I expected the saliva, which was hovering nervously left of his mouth, of two minds to whether to make its grand entrance or not, to fall loudly from his gaping mouth onto the and then shatter the interminable silence my thank you had created. My determined face said, "I am going to share your food with you, because you invited me." With all my will, I managed not to laugh and insisted that Albertina collect the food for me because I'm hungry. Albertina was still muttering unintelligible words and was now rocking from one foot to the other, looking around with a vacant expression on her face. "Go and collect my food," I insisted. But she stayed glued to the spot, and the man looked ready to faint. The place still breath, everyone was gulping, and the man was stuck in the same position, his cutlery hovering in the air. The whole scene would have only lasted a few seconds, but for the man, it must have felt like an eternity. So feeling sorry for all involved, bound by the culture of "you're invited," I decided to release them. I laughed out loud and said, "Oh, I was only." The eatery heaved a huge sigh of relief, and Albertina laughed nervously as she still wasn't sure what to do. The man laughed too loudly for comfort and started tucking into his food with a vigor I'd never seen before. The scene was totally ironic and absurd, but for the maid in Ghana, others involved, they must have thought, I was the strange one. That day I ate rice with fish, and as the man left, he came over to especially bye to me. Much later on in the afternoon, my friend asked, would you have really collected the man's food? What a question. Of course, he invited me, didn't he? Now, often, if you don't follow the "you're invited" script, you will be prompted. They will ask them so they can say no. It doesn't make sense. So two British girls were happily munching their lunch when a Ghanaian friend asked them, "Am I invited?" The obvious puzzled look flushed across their faces. "What? Am I invited?" she repeated, grinning and nodding towards their food. Huh? Obviously, these girls hadn't been here long enough. "Am I invited?" By this point, this lady was gesticulating like the lead in a bad kung fu flick, and she was pointing at their food. The penny finally dropped. "Oh, you want some food? Oh, you want some food? Why didn't you say so? Join us." The Ghanaian grin took an encore. "Oh, thank you," she said, and went to sit at another table. Those girls were very confused. The end. Can you hear me? C'est fini.
Ochinansoso tomorrow.
No, who about you? Very good. Very interesting.
Kojo, how was that? It looks like we're losing Kojo. Yeah, we lost Kojo.
We lost Kojo again. I think it's great. These conventions, you are invited without meaning it. It evolved because in the olden days, it was meant. When somebody invited you, they actually meant you to come and eat. But with time, it's become something like bon appetit.
Yes.
It's more like, it's not meant, but that was good. That was good. It's good we test it and see. Because in the 1982 famine, when there was a lot of hunger in Ghana, nobody would dare say you are invited.
Yeah.
It would have been taken literally, People visited houses when they knew others were going to eat. And they would hide their food under the bed all day, just waiting for visitors to go before eating.
Yeah. Albert, thank you.
Yeah,
I never tire of hearing this one. On the other side, I think we are all also aware that food, when eaten with others, also has a different dynamics. Okay, so whether it's boys around a bowl of fufu, or girls, old students who have met and have become mothers and corporate, see them around food together. The atmosphere of sharing, of communally dipping hands into one bowl, that is also a very interesting dynamics in our culture. So much so that people are able to eat more when they are eating with others than when they are eating alone. Again, that tells us, yeah.
Kofi, you'll be shocked to hear that I've never eaten in the same bowl with anybody.
But that's your arbitrary. That's your arbitrary background.
I don't think I could eat.
I know you. Nana, for instance.
Nana, you have not. Nana, you have not enjoyed life. Nana, you have not enjoyed life if you've not eaten with people in forever.
Yeah.
You see, it's
yeah. I guess. I mean, it's not because of a prejudice. Even in Ghana, my parents, it just didn't happen. You had your plate and your food was served to you. So, the last time I went to a funeral at Achimda, and the people I went to a funeral with had made this big fufu in it was the biggest I think I've ever seen. And I was invited. I stood at the periphery and couldn't take one bit because I never did it before. So, Kofi, how do you account for that?
Nana, you should try it. You should try it. When we were growing up, weekends, like for breakfast and lunch, usually you'd have your own meal, but usually for supper we all ate together. And my mom had this special jollof she would prepare on weekends. I was the younger one. My other brothers had bigger palms. So usually when the jollof was ready and she served it, she would give me a 5-minute hair start to eat before they join. We want to all eat together. And I think usually around the table, we got to talk as a family and share experiences. And even in my adult life, whenever I meet Kofi and we are eating around the bowl is that heavenly connection to our souls. And the food is just a catalyst for the connections and the brotherliness that we share. So maybe you should try it one day. I mean, there's a public health issue and all that, but culturally, if you are going by all the hygiene protocols, you should be able to enjoy a good bowl of fufu with your friends and your family. And look, fufu should be on the National Health Insurance Scheme approved drug list, because usually when you're on all you need
is Kojo is taking advantage of his moderator privileges to push an agenda.
I've never heard anybody wax so lyrical about fufu.
So let me read some messages. There are lots and lots of messages. Now, David Dogo says that, have you experienced similar scripts in non-Ghanaian cultures? I'm trying to imagine social interactions where people might say things they don't really mean, like the often token "bless you" when someone sneezes, for instance.
I mean, coming back to the food thing, everybody eats food together with their friends and their family and stuff, but your invited thing is really about sort of just a basic stranger. You know, where people are eating and somebody walks past and they say you're invited. And for me, that's the cultural aspect that always caught my attention. Now, why would you invite a stranger to come and stick their hands in their food? Whereas with your friends or family, there's a familiarity. So that is a very natural thing, and it also happens abroad. But nobody invites
you know something. You know something, Abba. You know the word. You know the word stranger. The concept of stranger itself is not in the script. So maybe that is where anybody who comes around, you know, whether you know them or not. That is why when somebody comes to your house, the first thing you do is to offer them water. Whether you know them or not, you assume that because there were no cars, no transport, people used to walk long distances. So the first thing you offered anybody was water. And then immediately after water, you ask them, you know, because somebody may be chasing you. And so we get to know. And the next thing is, are you hungry? So if they come when the food is ready, they are not strangers. And that is what undercuts, that's the undercurrent of that invitation. The moment somebody is within your sight, they are not strangers. They have become family, and you invite them.
Yeah. True.
But do you think that is still the same thing? Because obviously cultures change, and as you said earlier, that culture of your invited was done with a very genuine and a very honest way. But when we all leave our villages and hometowns and congregate in a city where a lot of people are now strangers, I think it takes on a different element and can't maintain the original honesty and genuineness that it just was with.
And I think that's something we should really keep an eye on. For example, in our villages, we were a community, we were one big family. And so some of the things that we did back then became a habit, like inviting people to come and eat, because then we have a basic instinct of thinking about the next person. But we don't see that in our modern lives. We don't see people getting together. Sometimes when you talk about Ghanaians, people say, oh, we are selfish, we don't like collaborating. But every literature you read of how things were done in the good old days was all about collaboration, even farming. People would get together and go and weed this person's farm today and go and weed the other person's farm tomorrow. But these days, in modern times, it's very difficult to get Ghanaians to trust themselves to work together. So even though you wrote about food, if we think about it broadly and some of the underlying things, you realize that there's a lot that we need to sit down as a people, possibly over a bowl of fufu, and discuss the things that make us unique as humans, and discuss the things that can drive our growth, so that we can create that nation we're all proud of. Because the mistrust and the dishonesty and all the negative vibe is a bit too much these days. So you can't even invite the next person when you're eating and be sure that the experience will be grand. Now, Nana Kwesi Gyan Apenteng, I'll ask you a question, then I'll go to Audrey, and then we take the next round of readings. So somebody says, so you've not eaten, yeah. Kofi, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, let me just drop this because it's still about the greeting. So there you are invited. It's actually also a form of greeting. Okay, so when someone joins you and the person starts eating without inviting you, the feeling is like someone who hasn't greeted. Okay, so you can look at it as, okay, someone has food and he either wants you to eat or not. But on another layer of meaning within Ghanaian culture, it's a form of greeting. It's a form of acknowledging. So much so that even when you are in a choba, okay, and then someone or wherever other setting, someone has started eating before you join, and you're also going to eat. If you notice, there's another way of inviting that other person who is ahead of you, who is already eating. Some will say, oh, I'm joining you. You understand? So these are also forms of greeting beyond the literal come and eat or don't come and eat. You understand? So go on, Kojo.
Okay, so somebody just wanted to know from Nana whether he went to secondary school, because he says he doesn't remember when he ate together with a group of people. You can't go to boarding school without eating together, at least Gary Soakins.
Yeah. Now that you say it, Gary Soakins, obviously we ate it together, so that's a good reminder.
Okay. Now, Eben Botry says, Audrey, your reading is splendid and diction very captivating, very powerful images as well. Have you been watching too much crime scene investigation videos, or this is a personal experience? It sounded so real, and Chematin wants to know what the inspiration behind Araba is.
It's not a personal experience. It's not a personal experience. But this I was inspired to write this as a result of me thinking about how do I even say it? Anxiety, because when we go through the story, you see that the Araba who's the main character is facing some kind of anxiety as a result of something that she has done, or as a result of the fact that she's reminiscing on her mom's death. And well, okay, if I talk too much, I'll reveal what's coming at the end. But I guess the suspense might be from thrillers or crime scene movies.
We have 20 more minutes to go, so we'll take the next round of readings and wrap up with questions and comments and answers. So I'll come back to Kofi again. This time I'll do Kofi, then I'll come to Audrey, come to Alba, and then I'll end for us. So Kofi. Your mic is off, Kofi. Kofi, your mic is off. Please turn it back on. And you are missing a bit of your beautiful head. So position your head properly so that the camera can capture you well. Kofi, your mic is still off. Okay. Since Kofi's mic is off,
okay, so Kofi's
Audrey,
here.
if you're ready. Yes. Okay, good.
Great. So my next reading is from my latest work of fiction. I don't get to do a lot of fiction. It was inspired by just having a good look at the porter ladies, porter girls who help us in so many ways out there. And I was just wondering what kind of family systems they come from, what kind of permission or what permissions don't they get before they make it to the big cities of Accra and Kumasi, especially. So I just thought of this character who has to come to Accra to become a Kayayu, like we call them, because there was very little to do in the village up in the north. But she is the daughter of a single parent, father to be specific. And this man has vowed not to allow his daughter to go down south to do this trade. So what he did was eventually, when there was pressure mounting that all the ladies have gone and they seem to be doing well and sending stuff to their families, he decided to get a good deal for his daughter. So the daughter is waiting to know whether the man has eventually decided to allow her to go to Accra or not. So this whole story is just about waiting to know whether she'll be allowed to come to Accra and work as a Kayayu. The title of the work is Lariba. I read. The ghosts of the already harvested Nara lay scattered across fields, their broken stems and withered leaves waiting to perish. The absence of foraging guinea fowls meant that men did not leave a grain of millet on the stalk. Donkeys and their carts dotted the savannah scenery as in a postcard picture. For the third year running, the annual harvest had been disappointing, the weather harsh and unforgiving. Across the southeastern horizon, a fiery sun had poured out its last heat for the day and was bowing out gently. On the other end down the valley, a handful of folks were at the pond. Cattle, women, and children were making use of water in different ways. The freshly graveled road in front of the dam stretched up and vanished out of Pajelo in all its red earth glory. It was from this horizon that he would arrive with the news. Would she continue to remain a part of this landscape? Whatever he brought, she was indifferent. Life plays tricks. It takes from one hand and fills the other. Life does things to people that they do not expect. The problem is one never knows who is next. Lariba was old enough to know that. Her own life had seen 17 harvests, and she had heard that were it not for the cowardly ways forced by modern trends, she was long mature to be a part of another man's household. Today's men are not men, she heard the elders say among themselves. She couldn't care less. The one man she has really known was always special, Ako. Her father wasn't like other men, marrying after wife and still eyeing other women. Lariba's gaze remained on the apex of the road that led out of town. Unlike the plain wide field spread below her, she was surrounded by loosely spaced baobab and kapok trees. She heard a group of people approach from the other path that led out of town. That route led right behind the groove where she had taken up position. She didn't want to be disturbed by passers-by. Lariba moved away from the exposed roots of the giant baobab tree on which she sat. She retired to the gorge at the base where more of the exposed roots had created a protective ridge. On moonlit night, lovers met up there. Tonight, that wasn't going to be as the moon was in her shy's face. Lariba reminded herself that she was there for an encounter that was far from romance anyway. Didi Dani, someone greeted. Dinley, she responded, without seeing who it was. Romance. The thought came again, and like always, followed by the nightmarish thoughts. Didi Dani, Dinley, she responded more energetically. This time she was able to make out the person, the shea butter merchant of the village, the rich woman everyone called Betanu after her daughter. Mbisim, she shouted a belated welcome after the woman. In a village where it was a sin not to greet and worse not to respond to one, she was really in for some distraction. But she was not leaving the spot. She had finished her house chores for the day and could afford to idle. She was also done preparing the evening meal too. An early dinner for 3. She barely tasted her self-dished bowl of saborok and her father's favorite kazanga soup. Another hearty greeting. Not many would be able to make her out, but greet they must. It wasn't the first time she'd been waiting for this man here. When she was much younger, her eagerness to see her father arrive from Wangatanga would see her come to the groove and wait. With the shifting of the sun, her heartbeat increased. She tried to make it look normal, but she knew she could not carry on with the self-deception. It could be her last day at Pajalo. If things turn the other way, she will remain here and go on with her life. Simple. Perhaps she'll really become a local man's wife sooner. But then, if it would happen, she would have to leave the next day. There wasn't much to pack. 3 good dresses and 2 pairs of underwear were already in a plastic carrier bag. She would wear her one good shoe and place her sandals in the carrier bag. And her rosary beads, the one given to her by Reverend Father Lazarus. Lariba Okay, so let's go on. Lariba stretched her neck out once again to see the darkened horizon. Ako was still not in sight. It was never the plan to leave town. Her late mother's brother, Sulemana, instigated this idea for her to go to the city. She got up again to stretch her neck. Then she sighted him. From the hill, the familiar figure she had been waiting for was becoming bigger and bigger. Even from far away, something seemed out of place. As Ako got closer, Lariba could see what was amiss. He was not riding his bicycle, just pulling it alongside his rather staggered steps. For the first time, she saw how old and tired he looked. Could her father be this worn out without her noticing it? Gradually, she could see more discernibly his facial expressions. Ako slowed down as he approached his daughter. Seeing her there, he didn't show surprise. Lariba left the baobab grove and joined him. Without a word, Ako handed the bicycle to her. She took it and pushed it along. With the bicycle between them, father and daughter walked together towards home. She could see a small carrier bag on the left handlebar. Without feeling it, she knew it was a kuli snack he had promised to buy for her in Wagatanga. Your dinner is ready. Lariba tried to make conversation. As they approached their main entrance, they found that Dinu had come out to stand against the entrance doorpost, something she hardly does. Lariba walked past her grandmother, followed by her father. With her heavy steps, the old lady followed. Inside the four-mat hut compound, Lariba parked the bike in front of the barn while her father collapsed into the lazy chair in front of his hut. Restless, Ako stood up after a minute and was going to step into his room. Should I bring your food? Lariba said after him. He stopped, turned, and looked at his only daughter as if seeing her for the first time. Bayo, he reached out. Dinu was still on her feet, like a spectator. Lariba floated into the arms of his father. His whisper shot straight to her ears. Promise me you will take good care of yourself. Suddenly, the warmth in her eyes melted. I will, Papa. Grandmother smiled. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was a good one. The only negative was that we're just seeing your forehead. Wanted to see your full facial expression while you read.
Sorry, I got a little invasion in the room. Someone rushing.
Yes. I saw your Lariba coming to you in the room.
Yeah, she rushed in. She rushed in.
Yes. Now, Patricia says, well done, ladies. Elsie says, I love the relationship between Lariba and Ako. Daniela Irabnafo says, go, Audrey, go. And Zoe wanted you to position your camera better. So, Kofi, take notes next time. Let us see your face. And we have just about 6 more minutes to go. I wanted us to have another round of readings each, but the next session is starting at 6. So we cannot go any further, else we would deny them the opportunity to start on time. So we'll take final round of comments and questions. But before that, Kofi, a lot of people are watching you right now. They've heard you read twice. Where can they get your books to buy?
Booknook.store. Booknook.store.
And can you tell us some of the titles you have available on booknook.store for sale?
Yes, so if the person is interested in the Savannah landscape, as you just heard, then you'll get Harmattan. You would also get Romancing Ghanaland. These are available currently.
Okay. Now, Audrey, where can we get your books to buy? Same platform?
Yes, so my books will be on Booknook soon, and you can also find some at Kingdom Bookshop, and also on Amazon.
Okay. Alba.
Yes, sir.
Where can we get your books to buy?
Can get from Booknook. So they have my 2 books, The Important Ghanaian and A Place of Beautiful Nonsense. And it's also available at Vidya. But the best place to get it from is Booknook.
So Booknook store and Vidya Bookshop, too. Okay. Nana Kwasi Gyan Apenteng. Nana, if you can hear me. Your mic is on mute, Nana.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, at the Gal Bookshop at Powerhouse, that's some of my books. And I invite everybody to send some of their books to the Gal Bookshop as well. And I also have a column in the Mirror that I do book recommendations. So if you have a book that you want to bring to the attention of the wider reading public and to make me aware, I can always consider it and write about it in my newspaper column.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you, Kofi. Thank you, Audrey. Thank you, Alba. And thank you to all our viewers. Unfortunately, we couldn't read some more, but there's another session starting in the next couple of minutes. And that session has Nana Redama and the rest of the authors. So join that session, enjoy the reading. Let's support our writers and our authors and our creatives. They are the lifeline to the next phase we want to take our country. Trust me, if Ghana will develop, we need to pick it up from the lowest hanging fruits. That's the art and culture. And these people are the superheroes that are going to drive Ghana to that particular point. So if you're watching us, support them, buy their book, share their content, share their stuff, so that they will grow and Ghana will grow with them. My name is Kojo, Akoto Boateng. I work at CTFM and CTTV. Thank you for watching. And thank you to Wear Ghana as well for giving our authors the very nice gigs. Follow them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and get your Wear Ghana stuff. The next session starts soon. So call your family, get around your computer, work together, and enjoy a great Saturday afternoon or evening wherever you are. Thank you, authors. Thank you, viewers. God bless you all.